Hey everyone, welcome back. I wanted to have a quick chat with you all about a development from last week where the Republican Party finally released its one and only legislative goal should they take power in the upcoming midterms. Now, that goal is to extend and expand the 2017 tax cuts passed under former President Donald Trump. This came out, I believe, on Thursday or Friday, and I wanted to take the weekend to really dive into it, conduct some of my own analysis, and then bring you all the results of this analysis. And bottom line up front, this is not good policy for the current time frame and the current economic conditions. However, they seem very dedicated to making this the signature proposal that they're going to put forward should they take control of either the House or the Senate. So, let's go ahead and discuss what they're planning, why it's bad policy, and why they're probably still going to do it anyway. The proposal itself is pretty simple, and it comes in two parts. Part 1, they want to make all of the temporary individual tax cuts that they passed in 2017 permanent. At the end of the day, this is probably net neutral because the government already isn't receiving these revenues, so it's not like we're taking anything away or giving anything to the government, so this really isn't going to have much of an impact. The second part, however, is that they want to repeal all of the tax increases that were designed to offset these tax cuts. And this is where the problem lies, because, the big issue with the midterms is inflation. And the Republicans saying, we are going to fight inflation, the Biden administration is not doing anything to control this. And according to basic economics, there are two things you don't want to do when you're experiencing heightened inflation. Number one, you don't want to increase government deficit spending, because that's spending money you don't have, so you have to print more money, causes inflation. The second thing you don't want to do is cut taxes, because it essentially does the exact same thing. And since they're not proposing any cuts to government services or any other budget tightening, it just is going to end up increasing the deficit anyway and causing the exact same issue you would see if you increased government spending. So, if this is going to be their only policy proposal, it kind of makes their argument that they're going to fight inflation a little bit hollow. Now, I know there are going to be some people out there who are going to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't actually know that that's going to happen. Yes, that's what the theory suggests, that tax cuts will make inflation worse, but we don't know that for a fact. Well, actually, this is one of the rare cases where we can look to a near-peer country that has proposed a very similar set of policies and see how things worked out. So without further ado, let's jump across the pond to the UK and see how a similar proposal worked for now former Prime Minister Liz Truss. When she was campaigning to become the leader of the Conservative Party and therefore Prime Minister, her signature proposal was a very similar extensive cut to corporate taxes, and this did help her win the election. However, once she entered number 10 and started the wheels in motion to actually bring this policy forward, the market reacted negatively. In fact, the damage was so severe that she resigned after only 44 days in office, making her one of the shortest-serving prime ministers in UK history. The added insult to injury was that she was succeeded as prime minister by Rishi Sunak, her opponent in the leadership election. Rishi Sunak had actually campaigned saying that, no, this is a bad time to cut taxes because, again, basic economic theory, this will make inflation worse. And it turns out that he was right. So, the UK Conservative Party said, alright, we went with Liz Truss first, she was going to cut the taxes, that didn't go well, so we're gonna not do that. We're going to jump over to the other guy, Rishi Sunak, who has a little bit more sense when it comes to fiscal policy. However, back in the States, the Republicans seem pretty dead set on doing this, regardless of the fairly obvious negative impact that would have on inflation. So the question is, why are they so engaged with this? Why is this the one hill that they're going to die on? Unsurprisingly, the answer is that it's politics. To sum it up, I think there's nobody better than one of my least favorite people in the world, Newt Gingrich. While I don't agree with him on almost anything, I have to admit that he is a pretty savvy political operative. So, I'm going to read a quick quote from him on this whole bit. Quote, "The trick is to put the president in a position of either getting defeated in 2024 or signing your stuff into law. Republicans will make it a priority to continue the Trump tax cuts because it puts Democrats in a position of being for tax increases and against economic growth. And I have to say, well, I don't agree with the tactics because bad policy is always bad policy regardless of what side puts it forward. He's right on the money for the politics. On one hand, let's say that Biden vetoes this measure, doesn't let it pass. Republicans come in 2024 and say, the Biden administration let the tax cuts we gave you under President Trump expire. You should be angry about that, and you should give us the presidency so that we can give you back the money you deserve. Solid talking point. American voters do have a dislike for taxes, and that dates all the way back to the beginning of the country. So, always a good talking point. Nobody really wants to be for tax increases, especially on individuals, as those are the tax cuts that are going to expire. The corporate tax increases that they want to cut, that's probably the part that they'll, not message so heavily on, and that's the one place the Democrats would attack them. But honestly, the individual tax cuts expiring would be the stronger argument, and that definitely favors the Republicans. On the flip side, let's say that Biden caves and passes this proposal in its entirety. Now you're looking at even worse inflation, which Republicans will also blame on President Biden. If it works for them in this midterm, it'll probably work for them in 2024 as well. So, either way, this is very much a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario for the Biden administration and the Democrats. The one way they could walk this narrow road is to cut a deal where they say, okay, we'll extend the individual tax cuts, but we won't take any of the corporate tax cuts into account. Those are not going to be passed. That could help them walk that middle ground where they're not causing individual American citizens and voters to see an increase in their taxes, while still keeping inflation relatively under control. The biggest factor that's going to impact how this process plays out is actually the results of the upcoming midterms. If the Republicans are able to gain control of both the House and the Senate, they'll be able to find a way to pass this piece of legislation in its entirety and get it on Biden's desk. From there, they win either way with a strong attack line to go into 2024. If he passes it, they blame him for the increased inflation. If he vetoes it, they blame him for the increased individual taxes. Too easy. The more interesting situation is if the Democrats are able to maintain control of the Senate. Right now it's kind of up in the air. They certainly have some opportunities to hold it, but we don't know how this election's going to turn out. We'll have to wait and see. But if they do manage to hold on to the Senate, they might be able to force a little bit more negotiation with the Republicans, as the House of Representatives alone can't get a bill on the president's desk, making that attack line a little bit more muddy. This is the opportunity where I think Democrats can negotiate to give Republicans some kind of win so that they don't appear to their voters to be completely obstructionist and terrible at governing, by saying, okay, we'll extend the individual tax cuts, we'll give you that, but we're not going to do the corporate tax cuts, which would have the major effect on inflation. That balancing act might help protect the Democrats from some of the attacks in 2024, and moderate this process a little bit to create a better policy outcome for everyday Americans. But, again, this is highly dependent on the outcomes of the upcoming midterms, and things are going to be interesting. I'm not putting out any predictions, certainly, as in the previous video I've discussed some of the issues that I see in the polling data that's available, but we will have to wait and see and check back in after the election. Until then, think about it. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe to the channel and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post new videos. If you want to support me on my other social media platforms, all of the links you need will be in the video description below. If you have any questions about this video or another topic that you'd like me to discuss, leave me a comment and I'll do my best to get you an answer. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.